We are live now. So,
Perfect.
welcome to round three of November Thursday Nighter. We got two club regulars here, or former club regular myself and current regular Connor.
Yep.
Missing New Bear this week, but he'll be back in the future. And yeah, Connor's controlling the boards tonight, and we'll be doing the main analysis, and I will be doing the question asking of Connor. So, let's get into the games.
All right. Yeah. On board one, we have Miles versus Daniel. It looks like Miles is with the black pieces and Daniel with the white. So we start out with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, four knights with knight f6. Very typical opening, and continued in the Scotch variation, the four knights. And we see takes, knight takes, bishop to b4. Nothing new so far. Knight takes, pawn takes, and it looks like both the players are in prep. They've used practically no time. Both of them starting or have more time than what they started with. We see bishop d3, pawn d5, takes, pawn takes, castles, and castles. And yeah, this is just a really standard opening. Nothing really going on here. Um, Now, from here, we start to get into like middle game stuff. We see queen to f3. This makes some sense, and this is the first real think of the game. 4 minutes to play this queen to f3 by Daniel. We see bishop to g4, just developing with tempo. Makes some good sense. Queen g3, bishop d6, uh, queen to h4, and in this position, I'm not actually sure what's
So,
the idea of white getting their queen chased around like this? Black seems to make some improvement moves and pointing at the king. Um, but okay, it's not like black is losing whatsoever, so it seems very reasonable to me.
you think at a superficial level they could have played bishop takes c3. You think it's just really not worth the bishop pair to fracture the structure?
Yeah, I mean, I've considered this, but let's say we see takes and takes. This really isn't a weakness because there's no way to exploit it. And plus, I'm just going to go c4 at some point, and then your pawns are also going to be a little bit silly. So I didn't actually see a big potential with this. I thought this was perfectly fine. And now white has a long-term advantage with the bishop pair as well. So I didn't see the point in taking, but it's definitely a line that you could have played. It's just one of the options. I think bishop d6 is also very principled. I think both moves would have been acceptable.
For sure.
Yep. And so after here, queen h4. I mean, black seems to have pretty good tempo here. And yeah, we see, I think bishop e6 because we're afraid of something like queen g5, but if, oh, sorry, bishop g5. But I think if we're afraid of that move, we should have just played um, h6 because bishop back seems a little passive. And yeah, now it allows this bishop move. And now I'm not so sure because now we have to go something like bishop e8, sorry, e7. But instead we see h6, which I'm really not a fan of because yeah, after takes, 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 takes. Now this is, I think, not so great for black. Um, yeah, and the big reason why I thought it was okay if this pawn was gone for white, but it's bad over here for black is because the pawns were symmetrical over here. Here you're playing against this block of pawns, and so I think it's a little bit more questionable. Just intuitively speaking, maybe the computer disagrees, but I just conceptually speaking find this harder. Yeah, we see knight to b5. Yeah, we have to back up the bishop. Um, we can't really come forward. We would love to, but if we come forward, we're going to run here, here, and after takes, our bishop is actually just trapped. Now, I think there's probably a way out if we play here, and we'll have some knight here, but I think takes and I have a slight preference for the white pieces here after after an exchange like this because your pawns are not great over here. So I tend to like white. So yeah, we're forced almost to retreat. The other option that we could play is we could come rook here and capture the rook. If we play a naive move like this, after takes and takes, now we have these two sets of double isolated pawns, and this is just, you know, white is he's gonna win this in a matter of moves. This is just really not playable. So I think instead maybe a more principled approach would have been, oops, here to protect the bishop in this particular case, but instead we sack the pawn And yeah, after b3, I am really liking black's chances here. So white's chances. Black does, poke the knight. We take, and then we come rook to e1. I don't know about takes. I'm not fully convinced by takes, although I do understand it. Maybe it is the best move because where do we really put the knight? If we put it here, this is kind of a sad positioning for the knight. It has no real future, and we go bishop here, and now every single square of the knight is going to be controlled by the bishop. Now in this particular case, we're hitting the rook, so we can't just play here right away. But conceptually, once we get our bishop here, this might be hard for our pieces. So yeah, maybe takes is actually best now that I look a little
Well,
closer.
Bishop here in the ending. I mean, can't hate getting rid of that.
Yeah, that is also something very true. The reason I don't like it is because now these pawns are a little bit scarier than they were before. And then after rook here, rook to e1, rook f e1, I think this is just helping black with their cause. They want to create some counter chances in the center and create some play. So this seems okay. Pawn to f3, stopping any play. We see bishop check, king to f1. And then after bishop d4, rook a to b1. And now the current live position after rook to c3. I still think that white is definitely for choice, but I think that white has also misplayed it. I thought white was way better before. Now I'm not so sure if they're actually going to win. I think this is maybe a little bit more drawish because yeah, I really don't like giving this e5 push. Back in this position, instead of rook e1, I think maybe a move like f4 was a little bit more called for, just to stop this push from happening, and then maybe we can come here and like double up our rooks and try and pressure this pawn. But the second we get this push and this support, it becomes very hard to play, in my opinion. Um, so I do have a feeling that Miles is not going to be losing this one, just given the play. From this position, I'm not even sure what we should do. I'm thinking rook here is maybe most principled, followed up with like a, double up and maybe like a g4 here. In fact, g4 is maybe the move I'd play to stop any future ideas of this if this bishop were to move anywhere on this diagonal. But it is very tough to say what is a good plan here. Um, but yeah, the other idea of g4 is we'll have king to g2, then we can swing our rooks here and try and start playing on this side of the board. That would be, I think, my long-term plan, but it's I think drash now. Chris, do you have any thoughts? What would you look to play here if you're playing the white pieces?
Well, I'm definitely not endgame aficionado like you, but opposite color bishops and rooks, and what's the pawn count here? I mean, I'm up a pawn, uh, so definitely gonna be playing for a win as white, and maybe trying to trade one pair of rooks at some point, but not
Mhm.
two. Don't want an opposite color bishop ending, but also I feel like trading off one pair of rooks reduces the counterplay. So I do like the kingside expansion plan you mentioned. I mean, it's not really a consideration whether you're going to play for a win or not when you're up a full pawn. So where do we play for a win? I mean, I guess we have to expand on one side
Yeah,
or
I,
the other
I'm
to make two
thinking I'm
weaknesses. So
I'm thinking let's say we just sit as black. We do have at least some idea of, breaking in the future, something like this. So there is some playing potential, but yeah, it's very hard to do anything. So I guess we'll see how this game goes.
I
Uh,
I do feel like as a serious tournament chess player, you eventually have to win positions like this as white. You know,
yeah,
uh, it's not easy. You're just up a pawn. It's not like you're up a full piece or their king's about to get mated. But hey, a full pawn's a full pawn, and you should be able to convert it
yeah, at least press and make it uncomfortable. Even if you
fairly
can't get
often.
the win, you should make it uncomfortable.
Because all those 2200s are like they're like, oh, they're just falling asleep as they convert this, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like, we're kind of struggling for plans, so it's not claiming it's easy, but it's definitely something that you want to analyze these games and make sure that you understand the correct technique for next game.
Exactly. All right, let's look at board number two then. We have Nathan Hoover versus Robert Donahue. Nate is playing the white pieces, and we start with pawn to d4. Robert plays knight f6, c4, e5. Already a gambit line. Not shocking. Robert likes playing this type of chess a lot. Nathan, not afraid to take, eats the pawn. We see knight to g4, bishop to f4, knight to c6, knight to f3, bishop check, knight blocks, queen to e7, queen to d5, castles, and I think white is just substantially better, although this is not uncommon for Robert. It is always a little bit, interesting seeing how he tries to play these positions against very strong players that are just objectively worse. Yeah, in this position we see h3 just kicking the knight away. We see takes, pawn takes, and then queen to a3, which just seems a little strange, but obviously not losing. It's just I don't see a follow after something like queen to d2, which yeah is what's played. And now after knight to h6, yeah, pawn to e4, and white is absolutely winning here. The only argument that you can make is that white does have extra material, but their pawns are pretty bad.
Yeah, I
So
was.
maybe what Robert is going to try and argue. But the problem with that is these pawns, they do look bad, but they are controlling, pushes from your pawns. Like this pawn can't push without, solving a lot of white's issues. And this bishop really isn't playing. So I'm not actually so convinced. So we see pawn to f5, which I actually really don't like. I really dislike this move. Yeah, this just allows white to develop with tempo against this pawn. Because now we're x-raying our bishop is x-raying the pawn. We're going to threaten to take it, and it almost forces capture, and it does. And now white has this monstrous bishop pair in the center of the board, and I can't see any result except white wins here. I don't even see a draw from a position like this with someone as strong as Nate playing. And yeah, Robert goes insane and sacks a rook. This absolutely does not work. We would love for this to work, but unfortunately, king to e2, and I just don't see any play. Yeah, because now the rooks protect each other, so our queen can't come and eat this. And okay, maybe we grab this pawn, but we just run our king. After grabbing king to d2, and pawn push is really not called for. No, I don't like this. Yeah, en passant. And, we may be trying to open up the position, but our rook is not going to be coming in. Um, Even after something flashy, like you could probably get away with bishop to f5, very flashy move. I don't think that works because you just go rook h to e1 and everything is defended. In this position, okay, he does go bishop to f5, and okay, yeah, we do see rook e1. Yeah, but this is maybe a little scary, but it's still I don't think anything. So yeah, rook to d8 will hit the queen, and now the idea is if we take, we can, I believe, sack here, and we're going to be not losing material. We see queen to b4, king to e3, rook to e8, and then probably king d3. Yep, we do see king d3, pawn takes,
I do.
and
I do wonder about
oh,
your sack line. What about something like queen a2 check intermezzo?
yeah, if you go, I'll show you the line. So if we go here, check intermezzo, we can
And,
block, I
and
believe.
maybe queen a5 now.
A queen f5. Um,
Queen's still hanging.
yeah, queen is still hanging, so maybe we can't. Let me think. If I go check here. Yeah, maybe just taking is good here because for some reason I missed this queen a5. So yeah, this is I think a very nice in between move. Yeah, rook here. There has to be something.
I'm I'm
It's
just
very
I'm more
unlikely.
paranoid to leave my pieces on pre than you are, but because I blunder my pieces all the time, so I'm like, oh man, I can't leave a queen hanging like that unless I'm really sure. But
Hmm.
back up just a tiny bit too. When he played e4, I was looking at the game earlier, and he actually had super potent option g4.
Back in
Yeah, a ways back. Yeah, So when he played knight h6,
Okay. So in this position,
yeah, he played knight h6 and then he played e4, but he could have played g4 as well. Yeah, instead of e4, g4.
yeah, G4 is definitely a very interesting and dynamic idea.
So he's getting at
Um,
that knight.
Yeah, G4 is definitely a move that you should consider. I think E4 is just very principled. The idea is just I'm going to go here and I'm going to castle. And what are you going to do about it? That's more or less the argument. So I understand why we played this.
Also,
Um,
I feel like I want to at least have a discussion point on why we don't just snap the knight on h6, like instead of e4. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
pawn's a pawn, right? We got to at least discuss that.
Yeah, so the big thing is it isn't a pawn in this particular case, because if you take here, we're not able to take back, so it's
Yeah,
not even a pawn here because of the fork. But even if so, we wouldn't want to like really take it. Maybe you could argue like you can play this here and here, and this is actually I think a very playable line. In fact, this is maybe what I would have gone for, just because it seems like I'm never going to lose this. But Nate wanted to play a little bit more principled and a little bit more ambitious. So this knight cannot be a good piece. It's just impossible for this to be a good piece because it has no squares that's being controlled. And so you can almost always just defer taking until a later move. And so Nate just decided, yeah, I'll wait. But then Robert came up with this sack, and it started to get a little bit complicated. So I do kind of like what Robert did here, making
you,
it really tricky.
you can see though, yeah, like the knight maybe has no moves, but you did enable that f5 plan, right? Knight supports f5, and that plan was. It does kind of remind me though. I saw there was like a Magnus lie detector test or Magnus video, and
Mhm.
it was shown that or some discussion point in that video was like he's one of the very few players who will just allow their opponents to do their bad plans.
Yes.
So he'll be like, usually you see your opponent preparing the f5 break or they're preparing some move, they're preparing knight h6 f5, and you think to yourself, okay, I got to prevent that. He's playing knight h6 to support f5. Got to make sure that plan doesn't work. But if you get to the next level, Magnus level, then you're thinking to yourself, well, f5 is bad anyways. Go ahead, buddy,
Mhm.
and do your bad plan, even though you're forecasting it.
Exactly. I see one of my friends just commented, so they said hello, Connor. We'll say hi, Nathan. Hopefully, I think this is the first time you're ever tuning in. Hopefully, this is interesting for you. My friend Nathan is starting out playing chess, and he's really getting into it. So I'm glad he's able to stop by.
Welcome,
And yeah,
Nathan. I hope you adopt some principled openings. You know,
yes.
stick to your opening development, castle your king quick, and don't let Connor convince you that Joe Bob London is the way to go.
Yeah, he's starting to play some more openings against me. Last time we played, I was I think playing some Jabava against him. Maybe
Oh
not
no,
the opening I should be playing, but
yeah, you're gonna convince him it's good because it is, but
yeah.
it's dangerous.
Yeah, and I think the line maybe that stopped all this play is king to e3 here, because actually what do you play as black? So maybe this is the line instead of sacking the queen. This is maybe a little more principled because now you don't
Ah,
have any checks, and it can get a little tricky. So.
who doesn't like to
But
sack a
okay.
queen though in a game of classical chess? I mean, what better feeling?
Yeah, so we see check instead, rook here, king to d3, just defending everything, and after takes, rook c4. I think we're in the clear more or less as whites. I don't see any concrete attacks. We see this knight check. Yeah, yeah, very nice move. We sack our queen because we're not going to be losing this, and in fact we're going to be probably up a pawn, or in exchange for a pawn.
Wait, but
So
hold on. Reminiscent. There's no queen a3, queen a6, is there?
well, if we do this, we block.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Phew.
And so this is a very nice move. Yeah. After takes, check. Yeah, we're just going to be we're actually down a pawn, but I actually think we have pretty decent drawing chances at the very least. because we're going to be winning this pawn back. So maybe this is actually going to be a draw, which is very impressive by Robert that he was able to hold it if he's able to draw. Yeah, after bishop e6, rook takes, rook c8, king b3, takes, rook c7. I don't see anything but a draw. And actually, the game ended here. I think they just agreed to a draw.
Robert
Okay.
Robert clutching with his endgame skills like usual.
Yeah, this is surprising to me. I would have told you, White's going to win this every single time, but Robert did show some very nice
So
understanding of how to attack and open up the king, and it got very dangerous for White very quickly. Although I didn't actually see everything working. I think all the moves that were played were reasonable, and I think this is a very reasonable result.
well, let's back up a tiny bit because White was totally objective to winning at some point. So where
Yeah.
was there?
And so
Where did it slip?
back here, I do think that e4 makes sense, but after here, I don't actually like the choice to go here. Yeah, in this position, I think takes is more principled, and this is honestly what I think should have been played. Well, okay, this gets a little more complicated than I would like, but I don't think
There's no queen g5 there.
yeah. So maybe instead of
Well,
e4 here, you
wait,
do just take.
hold on. I want to see this. So after bishop h6, e takes f3. There's no queen g5.
Where?
Yeah, in the line you just showed with
Here?
bishop takes, yeah, and e takes f3. Can I try queen g5 and threaten mate?
I mean, yeah, but this is an empty threat. I go work here, and what do you play? So
I don't know. I'm hoping for bishop h7. I'm calculating here, trying my best.
yeah, unfortunately, you just don't quite have enough going towards my king, so I don't think there's really
Got
anything.
it. Connor's just like
Uh,
hand waves that. Clearly won't work, but
yeah,
it looks on the
or
edge to
maybe
me.
maybe I take here first. This is probably slightly more accurate, and then I can even take here, if depending on what you play. If you play here, of course, I can just happily take here, and now I might even be better. In fact, I think I am better now. So you do have to be a little bit careful. And actually, now that I say that, no, I'm completely winning. I'm winning a rook because I take it with check. So I
Yes.
go here, takes, king up, takes here. Yeah, and
So
and this is
I'm seeing my own ideas before my opponents. That's become an issue.
yep, yeah, and this is a very enticing line, but it just doesn't quite tactically work. All right, let's try to move to the third game. This is Eddie versus Ronan, and this is the live position, but we'll go back to the start. So we have Ronan with the white pieces, Eddie with the black. Both of them are very strong players. I believe Ronan is around 1900 right now, and Eddie is around 2000. Although both of them, I believe, are probably underrated for just how sharp and how strong they are. But okay, so we see pawn to d4, knight f6, c4, pawn to g6. Um, let's see, knight to c3, bishop to g7, knight f3. Pretty standard opening. Yeah, Ronan actually essays this most of the time. So it's interesting that Eddie is playing something that Ronan almost exclusively plays, or this some type of structure, and he'll go here and he'll go here and he'll play this. So Ronan really does know how to play against it. So pawn to e4, yeah, pawn to d6, bishop e2, e5, d5, and yeah, I always actually do like this for white just because I like the space advantage, but nothing like out of the ordinary. This has been played 1,000 times before by masters. We see pawn to a5. The idea of pawn a5 is, like I said, it's really nice to grab space. I want to go pawn to b4, so this is just to stop that. And yeah, after castles, knight to a6. I've actually, I believe, played this exact same game before against, who was it? It actually might have been against Ronan himself. Um, but yeah, very, very
There's
typical.
there's a
And
funny plan I used to love as a kid. Just back up two moves.
mhm,
When he played a5 instead of a5, it really doesn't belong in this position against King's Indian. But instead of a5 against Samish, if they played f3, which is a totally different line, you can
mhm,
actually play a6, and it will kind of they'll think you want to play a6 b5, right? And so
mhm.
the natural reaction by white is to play a4 to prevent you from playing b5, but then you play a5 because
Yeah.
your real point was just to bait a4
Mhm.
and get that juicy b4 square to play knight a6, knight b4.
Yeah, and this is a good thing to point out. White really doesn't want to go a4 here. It looks like, I'm grabbing space. This is so good. But this is actually a huge weakness because this square can no longer be controlled by any pawns. And so if I sink my knight into this square, there's no way to remove it. And this is just going to be a very strong piece for black. So instead, we see castles, knight to a6, knight to e1. And after knight to c5, this is yeah, now f3. This is a very comfortable position for both sides. The only piece that maybe has a question, what is it going to do, is this guy. It might just park itself here, or we'll see pawn push and get a bishop here. I personally like the d7 square, but I think both are reasonable. We see knight back. I think the idea is to get some pawn pushing, maybe get pawn here, open up the scope for the bishop long term. This makes good sense. We see bishop to e3. Yep, f5, just like we thought. And after knight to d3, oh boy, this is starting to get complicated. I think b6 here is probably called for, and I see it's played. And the idea of b6 is that, let's say we take, what we're going to do, we're not actually going to take with the knight. We're going to take with the pawn, and we're going to try and play against this pawn on this open file long term. And it'll get a little bit uncomfortable. We can also take this way and then park a piece on this square instead, and both are playable. And we can even take here. I just don't like take as much because the position is closed. I would like to keep my knights on if possible.
I
But
mean,
okay, instead we see rook c1. Yeah.
I'm not a d4 player, so I'm definitely no expert, but I feel like this can't be the best system for white because to me, when I just watched this game play out, black developed all their pieces naturally. Like they really had no opening problem from what I can tell. And to me, then you're just playing like system type opening. You're playing London system. You're playing Kale. Like there's nothing wrong with it. You're gonna get a zeros position, but you have the white pieces. You should try to, in some way, make it difficult for your opponent to develop one of their pieces. Or I
Yep.
mean, you are getting the space advantage, so I'm not hating on that. I do love that pawn on d5. So I guess
Yeah.
it's a bit of a trade-off. And if you actually know the plans, hey, who cares if black develops all their pieces perfectly naturally when they put them on the wrong squares or something? But just yeah, it feels a little bit like I feel like kind of like there's one way to play chess. It's kind of like trade-offs, right? Like I trade, you get this, I get that, and then I feel like as players get stronger and stronger, they eventually get totally uncompromising. They're like, you get nothing, I get everything,
Yep.
and if you're gonna get something, no, well, no, we'll do nothing this move, and later I'll take something and you'll get nothing. But I'm not gonna trade a bad pawn structure for a bishop pair. I'm not gonna do any bad trades for me that you get something, I get nothing. I'm just gonna
Yep.
do play chill moves, and eventually I'll take something, you get nothing. But
Yep. And that is really how you should be playing. Now I like my flashy chess. I'll give you a little something if I think I can get something, which is objectively not the best, but yeah. And this is, I think, a very nothing position for both sides, and they're both just going to wait for the other to make a mistake. I see Nathan is saying that he's enjoying the commentary, so thank you. Also, he's playing Sequence. Great card game, but I would recommend playing chess, uh, of course. But yeah,
too much
it,
chance.
yeah.
Control your own
Um,
destiny in chess.
yep. A lot less chance than in Sequence for sure. If you draw the wrong cards, you're not going to win, but in chess, no cards. There we go. But okay, so instead we see Rook to C1. I think very, very reasonable play. And this is just the nothing move that Chris was talking about earlier. And now we see pawn to f4. And yeah, this is typical of the King's Indian structure that black has. And they're just gonna try and, attack the king side, throw the kitchen sink basically at the white king and hope, they mate. This is very typical. We see knight takes, pawn takes, and then bishop to f2. And actually, I really like this for black. This is a really nice position in my opinion. because normally what happens is white will have counterplay over on the queen side, but now that we've locked our pawns, all the play is going to be on the king side. And the only person who can really play on the king side here, it looks like, unless white finds some crazy plan, is going to be black. And so
Yeah,
we see
I'm also
g5.
I'm also noticing, black still has their light squared bishop, which is key because at some point, yeah, you look at that bishop on e2, it's not contributing to the defense of that king in any way. It's kind of shut out. Yeah, maybe you can imagine it coming back to f1, but then they're going to have other type of weaknesses like back rank or on f2.
Exactly.
So, but eventually, this pawn storm is going to come in, and white's going to try to play h3, and you need that bishop to sacrifice on h3 to open the king because otherwise h3 is a great resource for white to defend. If white could remove the light squared bishops from this position, they would be so happy.
Yeah, I'm actually not entirely convinced that they're going to be like elated about it, but because we do have the X-ray defense,
Okay.
but I do think that it would be slightly better for white if we took off the bishops. But yeah, I don't think they're comfortable in any case. We see queen to e1, which I actually really like. H5, yeah, h4, and this is actually why I really liked it. This h4 plan is at least tricky. Um, and it does have me wondering what we want to play. I'm thinking something like knight to f6 is called for here, just trying to bring in the knight. But actually, maybe the knight doesn't belong in f6. Maybe we want to get the knight to this square.
So what's the huge
Um,
idea with h4? Because it does seem a bit dangerous, moving pawns in front of your king when your king's getting pawn storms.
yeah, the idea of it is we want to take and then go bishop here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create an escape route for our king at some point. And that's the long-term plan. Yeah, we see bishop h6, h takes, bishop takes, and king to h2. Yeah, I think this is very reasonable. And what we're going to argue is after push, you don't really have anything, which I think is actually a reasonable argument. We see rook to f7, rook to h1. Okay. The other plan is just to come here, here, and then try and get out this way, which I also like this plan.
This still looks so dangerous. It feels like black still got what they want here. A little
Yeah, I mean,
bit.
black is definitely for choice. You are absolutely right. I just don't think they got everything that they wanted, especially after bishop h4. I actually don't see the advantage anymore. Queen g6, sure, takes, bishop f1. And yeah, I'm actually thinking, you know, black is slightly better, but I'm not seeing any attack. So I really like what's happened. Knight to f6, queen h4, uh, trade, knight b4. Yeah, and all of a sudden I'm not thinking black is
Okay,
is
so what led up to h4 that black could have prevented h4 if h4 was so good?
yeah, the objective evaluation might not be, it's the best play, but I think h4 practically speaking made it very hard. I think bishop to h6 was maybe not the right plan. Trying to think what would have been the right plan. Maybe it was just better to.
Yeah, but you're talking, and so you're talking about he's got that X-ray defense with his light square bishop, which otherwise is useless because it's going to get sacrificed.
Yeah, I think
So,
this is maybe a mistake. Maybe
so yeah,
maybe
maybe,
knight was the play.
yeah, maybe he needed to. So now, if you play h4, can you play g4 or?
Yeah, and this would be my plan if you go g4. And after takes, I take. And if you take, this is very sad for you because now my knight is a monster on this square. And I'll go pawn here, and you're not going to have a good time.
But yeah, you're not totally thinking about them playing h4 when you're kind of pawn storming them. So it is
Mhm.
good to think of that as a nice defensive resource, and you should be ready to play g4 if they play h4. Because if you can't play g4, it's annoying.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is maybe this move came as a surprise. And yeah, once we trade queens, trade, pawn here, I think this is probably going to be a peaceful ending. You see rook to g3.
Or we do see, and
Bishop
we can
back.
already see the game result. So Eddie somehow won this.
Eddie did somehow win this. Yeah, I do see that, which is surprising to me. We see knight back, push, back up. Yeah, it was just Eddie is just playing a maneuvering game. Ah, okay. But yeah, I see this. yeah, allowing this pawn to be poked is bad. You have to come king here in this position. And th this is probably why the game ended.
So
Um,
he's got a terrible bishop there, though. I mean, he's got a good knight. This, if you've ever seen good knight versus bad bishop, I mean, look how many light squared pawns he's got.
yeah, it looks like Ronan just didn't do the calculation here. This is clearly lost. Yeah, very nice touch actually. Um, I think we can actually take. In fact, I think takes is maybe best. Let me figure out why we didn't take. Here. Ah, okay, maybe it's a draw. So yeah, okay. Here's a nice touch though, because once we take king back, um, yeah, we beat the king, and we're just gonna run the pawns. Uh, so after knight to f6, we actually see, I believe, resignation, because there is no way to stop us from just running this pawn all the way down the board, and getting a queen. So yeah,
We got
very
Eddie.
nice.
We got Eddie in the chat, ready to be showered by Connor's compliments.
Yeah, very nice on game technique. This is what I was saying earlier. I think it's yeah, just as good to play something like this, but at the same time, no reason to make it complicated. Here, and after takes, you got an extra tempo, and I don't think you can do anything with the tempo, but you don't want to chance this is not winning, right? I mean, of course, we do see it's winning now that we've played it on the board, but yeah, very nice end game. I think it was probably drawn. Ronan just got a little bit too ambitious with this play. In fact, I think even here it might be drawn. Here. Maybe not. Maybe not. Here. Yeah, no, maybe not. Yeah, maybe it's just once you got your king away from the pawns, it was just bad. Yeah, here's definitely what I would have played, and I would have just sat back and forth and played this forever. That, or I go here and then takes, and I don't feel like I can really lose this because there's no way for the knight to get in, because I'm just gonna go here, like bishop here and here and here and back and forth. But yeah, I mean, Ronan trying to win, it just doesn't end up
Yeah,
working out.
I don't know. Is he known to prone to overpress? He did once against me.
Yeah, Ronan has overpressed several times. I've never actually had him overpress against me. So I don't think it's so common. And against other players, I've seen him what I thought was overpressing, and then he won. But he does
It's a
tend to
strategy.
press a lot, and sometimes in this case overpress. But no, I think Ronan
Yeah,
is a very solid endgame player. I don't see him make too many blunders in the endgame. So
he's trying to collect points in the end game though. So you better lean in if you're
exactly.
if you're playing Ronan in the end game, because it's not going to go placid. He's going to try his hardest.
Yeah. So, but king to d3, he took only about 1 minute on this move, and this is just really not a good move. I'm surprised he only spent a minute here. Um, I think king to f2 is just more principled, but so be it. All right, let's look at the
Do you
map.
think he was thinking about sacking b5 or what? You know,
Yeah, what I think he was looking at was he was dreaming of going b6 and getting his king in. And these are beautiful dreams, but they're just dreams, and that's the unfortunate part. So, um, I think there was just more principled chess to be played.
so Eddie making the King's Indian look good.
Yeah, very nice.
That's
All right,
look at that pawn chain. I mean, it's beautiful.
yeah, winning Connect 4 already. Just very nice job. Although White also has his Connect 4, so maybe they cancel out. But in this case, you got a fifth piece, the Rook. Okay, White has their fifth piece too, but it's not as nice. It's a sad Rook on H1. So
Yeah, and that light squared bishop is not happy right now.
exactly. All right, let's take a look at game 4. This is Norm versus Ralph. Two very strong players. So we see pawn to d4, d5, knight f3, bishop to f5, e3, e6. Norm plays this setup as black a lot, so Norm's very familiar with it. I don't actually know too much about what Ralph plays. I haven't seen so many of his games, but looking at the time usage, it looks like he's in prep. He's actually about 2 minutes above the starting time. We see pawn c4, pawn c6, queen b3. It's a little strange here, but it's very playable. yeah, queen to b6, and then queen back to d1. So I have a feeling that maybe he's not so familiar with this opening
That
because
doesn't
this is
seem. Yeah, come on. You just queen takes queen is fine. Like,
yeah, queen takes queen is fine.
what are you
But
worried about?
also just
Not, I mean,
playing here's fine.
I'm saying black tanking on b3. So like, you're playing queen d1 to avoid queen takes queen, I guess. But who cares if he takes that queen? You'll just play a takes. That improves your structure. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, and or you can play, the ambitious here, and after it takes here. I think you're I think you're supposed to go knight here or something, and,
well,
and it'll get sharp, but it's playable.
well, look at that, and look at that line. It's there's a master playable line with c5 clamping your structure, reducing your options, which is if you guys don't know about that, I mean, playing c4 c5 is very committal. You no longer have any tension on playing cd5, so the variation better be pretty good. And so white so much wants black to play queen takes b3 that they're willing to commit that c5 clamp.
So the reason why it's not so bad is because you get this push just in time because of the pin. So it just ends up barely working tactically because let's say you take here, we can play this really nice move and hit the rook, and now we're just okay. And so it turns out not being that bad simply because we have this break. Otherwise, you're right. Going c5 is really bad. It's just in this particular case, we have this tactical refutation, and if they don't push the pawn, we're going to go here and here anyways. In
Yeah,
fact,
because
in this position, I think some there's some line that I think UV plays. Maybe it's not this exact position, um, but that it just works out for black, and you hold, and it's playable. But yeah, in this case, it's playable because of tactics.
yeah, I know I do it now and then against lines like Joe Bava London if they're falling behind in development. But
Yep.
yeah, in general, you want to think of chess as options, right? Like, and c5 is really reducing a lot of options when you could otherwise develop a piece. You can otherwise, like, if you don't know that's your prep, if you don't know that's your line, right? Playing c5 in just an ad hoc manner is kind of crazy,
Yep.
because you had tons of other options to develop, and not only do you not take a more flexible option, you're reducing your future flexibility.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, you shouldn't be breaking tension like this unless you see a very clear benefit or a clear drawback. So in this case, yeah, c5 has a benefit for you, which is why you play it. But yeah, instead we see queen to d1. And now black is very happy just developing. Yeah, in this case, c5 I think is not so strong. Why not just, develop a knight? You
Yep.
want to leave your options open long term, and you can always play c5 like in the next 10 moves, 15 moves. Nothing is ever going to happen. And if we see takes, we're very happy to develop our bishop with tempo. So yeah, c5 here I don't think is so
Yeah,
great. And after
and
queen
there,
c7,
if they play takes, you can even think about playing something like knight e3, knight takes with tempo on the queen, just being chill
yeah,
about it.
exactly.
It's like
Okay, we
it's
knight
so
c3,
anti-pose.
knight b d7, and yeah, before e5 takes, queen takes, and yeah, offering the queen trade, and Norm takes it. I would be very happy to play this. And yeah, king to d7.
Well,
Yeah, I like this move. I was thinking, do we have to do this? Could we be more flexible? But I think king d7 is reasonable. The other move that I might have considered was g6 here, and or h5. In fact, maybe h5 is what I play here. And the idea of h5 is we're going to go g6 and try and trade our dark squared bishop along this diagonal. So something like this. Let's say we get a push here. Then we're going to go here, and let's say we get a push here. What we want to do is get our bishop here because this bishop is terrible. This one is okay. So I like ideas like this.
so
Um,
what do you think? How do you evaluate this? Who's better?
I mean, this looks very equal to me. I don't see anyone winning.
And
Yeah,
then
we see.
who want? Okay, and white has. Yeah, I see this as being like point 0.2 if I had to guess, right? White's got a tiny bit of space, but it doesn't really matter because black's pieces aren't restricted by that space, and they still have they don't have that many options, but the options they have are fine. And what I am curious about though is, who wants to trade pieces at this point? Does it matter?
Yeah, so black is definitely the one who wants to trade. And that's just off of principle, that you want to trade with the black pieces. Generally, when you see pawns like this, if you can trade off pieces, they're not going to be able to support these pawns later on. And your king has a lot shorter journey to get here, than this king does to get, here. I can't do like the diagonal line, but we have to get all the way over here before we can start touching these pawns. So black is going to be a little bit faster. So conceptually, this would be, preferable.
Because I think
Um,
playing positions like this is a big step towards getting towards 21, 2200, right? Because, uh, yeah, this position is clearly totally equal, but
yeah,
a
white probably
2200 is
slight
gonna
edge.
a 2200 is gonna beat me on either side of this position, probably.
Yeah, in this position, what white wants to do is they want to go F3 to restrict the knight jumps and the bishop, and then just plant their king on F2 and still play it with like a bishop here, here, and maybe get their rooks onto the center file. And white is probably more comfortable. But
Like it's an objective draw, but it's definitely not even close to you know leaning back and chilling out, because if you really try your hardest in these positions, you can win a lot of them.
yep, exactly. In this position, we see bishop e2, which I think is a little bit in a step in the wrong direction. I don't like this move. Yeah, because of exactly this move, rook to e8, and I'm not so sure. And yeah, castles. I'm not in love with this idea. We see knight to e4, takes, bishop e3, and now I think we're actually okay. I think black could have played better, so could have white, but this is okay. We see g6 here, reasonable. A4 and developing our bishop to a square where it's really doing nothing. But I guess the idea is to connect the rooks. And yeah, I don't actually really like what black has done. I think white has more chances than they should have here. So going back, yeah, after rook here, I think this is good. After castles, I'm not so sure about this knight jump here. Let me think what we should do. I think that here is maybe called for with bishop here just to x-ray this pawn at some point. But I don't think we want to move our knight yet, because I don't actually know where we want to put our knight. I'm actually thinking we want to get it to this square somehow. And so maybe we'll find a route to get it there, but I actually think this knight is worse than ours, because there's no real square that I can see for this knight that's going to be super problematic for us. So, but yeah, once we trade bishop here, pawn push, we're just giving white what they want. And yeah, we're pawn storming, and this is kind of scary for us. Yeah, and all of a sudden,
Well, if it
I think that
can't,
white is maybe going to win.
would white want to maybe even include f3, king f2 at some point? I don't know. I'm just trying to make that bishop worse,
Um,
but maybe
yeah,
that's
F3
naive.
doesn't quite work here. If we go F3, I'm just gonna take, and it's probably
Got it.
nothing. Um, it's probably draws. It's playable, but I don't think we want to include that yet.
Hold on though.
And
Hold on. f3, bishop f3. What about bishop f4?
bishop F4. Okay, take.
And take your rook.
Give you a check. Wait, actually, I will give you. I'll still give you a check. Oh, where was that line? Three takes here. Here. Which check do I give you? Maybe give you this check and take
Too
the
many.
rook.
Too many. I got it. Yeah, I hung that exact same tactic to you in the over the board game, so makes sense
Yep.
that I blundered it there.
Yeah, yeah. I think ours
Inter,
was a little bit more nuanced than this, but same principle.
intermezzo bishop d4 is lethal if you don't have that pattern in your brain.
Yeah, but okay. So we're in this position now, and yeah, I'm very happy as the white pieces here. In fact, maybe even here is called for to hit the rook, and just eat the pawn. In fact, I don't see why this is not just winning on the spot, because I don't think this works due to takes here. Yeah, I don't think it works, but okay. Instead, we see rook here, just playing it a little bit safer, and we see this pawn push. Um, I think it's maybe more called for just to take the pawn. I don't know why we didn't see the capture here. This just seems a lot more principled to me. But okay. Instead, we see push. Yeah, king here. We see push again, king here, and now takes check, king up. Takes. Yeah, and this is going to end very poorly for black. The pawn is just a little bit too far advanced. I think this game is all but decided. What white is going to do is they're going to go bishop here and win an exchange, something like that. And yeah, just show what the line is. Maybe something like this. And this is not good whatsoever. It will end, I think, fairly soon. So I think unfortunately Norm is lost. Um, let's head on to the fifth game. We see Scott versus Steven, and Steven playing with the white pieces. We see pawn d4, and it looks like we're going to see a Caro-Kann, pawn d5, and okay, knight c3. I think at this level you should almost always play pawn to e5. This is a far sharper variation, and you can win very quickly out of the
Yeah,
opening.
I had like
After this,
80%
you're
win
already
rate.
winning.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, right there. Yep. I've won so many games this variation, but I do see why. I'm actually planning to drop it eventually because even though it's practically so good, like if you play people who are really good, they equalize by force.
yeah, I mean, I think there are a few playable plays. Queen to b6, I think is playable. I think h6
Uh,
is playable,
no,
and
no.
h.
H5 is the only really playable. Uh, H6, Queen B6 is dubious. H6 is somewhat playable, but you'll play H6, G4, and then you have to play Bishop D7, and a ton of them will play something like Bishop B4, F3, Bishop H7, and you can play E6.
Yep.
But Queen B6 right away, come on, that's some hope chess.
Yeah, I mean, Queen b6 right away is like what I would play in Blitz.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
hit him with A4, A5. Yep. Okay, yeah. I probably prepared that against you. That's why I know it. Somebody plays. I think Ronan plays that. So people should be ready for that. If you hit him with
yep,
H4, be ready for that Queen B6. If you play the normal, totally normal style, like it's not going to go well for you. But you just play A4, A5, tickle that queen,
yep.
and yeah, got you with your early Queen B6 counter.
Yeah, you are right. That's how you're supposed to play it. But I'm saying like, okay, this is better for white if I play here, but it's not lost. And especially, I believe these two players are around 1600, so I think this openings aren't super critical. But if
Yeah,
there's an
yeah.
opening where you can just win right away, I think this is something you should try. But instead, we see knight to c3 takes, knight to f6, and it's just yeah, it's just a game. Takes. I actually like black in these types of structures, largely because it's just so easy to develop. I'm gonna go bishop here. I went a little bit far ahead. Bishop here, and just castles, and I'm very happy. Okay, we see knight to f3,
Well,
bishop d6.
you give them black what they want a bit, right? Because Carol guys, they're endgame guys. They want solid principled chess and
Yeah, and so black did already makes a somewhat small inaccuracy here, and so did white actually. If we're gonna play this, we should go bishop here right away to control this square because we want to put our bishop here. So knight here is already allowing black to go bishop here, but instead we come here and now we get bishop c4, which is the move that we would have wanted. And yeah, castles. I think neither side is really trying to play it for a win here. I think they're both happy with the draw, just seeing how they're playing this. Rook e8, bishop d2, yeah, bishop g4, rook here, takes, bishop takes. Yeah, and this looks very, neither of them are clearly playing for a win. So I think this is going to end peacefully. And random pawn push. I really don't actually like this pawn push here. Um, I think if we're going to push a pawn, we want to push this pawn. Um, and the reason why is it's a little bit more forcing, and then we can play here. But since we push here first, yeah, this allows pawn here, and now we can never make any progress. Plus, our bishop is already eyeing the pawn, so we don't even have to waste tempo to do this. But okay, I don't think it's a losing mistake. It's just inaccurate, and it's going to make it easier to draw or maybe even win if white plays
That's
well.
that reminds me of an actual something I read in an endgame book of a way really strong players win end games, especially if they're winning, is they just do nothing moves and they wait for their opponent to ruin their own position. And
Yep.
usually the way they ruin their own position is by pushing pawns. So
That's exactly what happens when I'm playing like a 1900 over the board in whatever tournament, and they'll offer a draw. It is completely drawn. I usually almost always say no because they're gonna panic. They're facing a 2150 or whatever I am at the time, sometimes 2100 or however I'm playing at the time.
soon to be
I see
22.
a lot of players just randomly push pawns and destroy completely equal positions. So Chris is absolutely right. You see this at even very strong levels, like I said, 1900. So good
Yes.
advice. Just sit on the position, make nothing moves, maybe slow improving moves, and yeah, you might still win.
Or or the best is simple threats. If like they have to reply to like you attack a pawn and they have to defend the pawn, and then you attack another pawn, they have to defend that pawn, right? You just keep making these stupid simple threats, and then eventually they're like, "This guy's trolling me. He's making threats that are so obvious," and eventually they just like miss one of the simple threats, and the game ends. Like,
Yeah, I've won several games exactly like that. And you see it even at the high levels, like Carlson massaging against, 25, 2600 level players, and they just blunder a pawn. It happens. So, right, in this position we see bishop g6, rook e3, queen over. I'm not understanding a lot of these moves. Um, but there's really not a lot to play for, so I don't know if there's anything to understand. We see knight over rook here. Does this not
no,
blunder a pawn?
play, there's play. Hey, we got queens on the board.
Should be fine.
I'm
Yeah, I think
I'm sure you'd beat me up on both sides of this position, Connor. So there's plenty to play for here.
yeah, I think this is just a clean pawn blunder. Takes, bishop back. Yeah, I'm very unsure why this happened. We see bishop to f4, rook e7. Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. Okay, this is
Okay.
sure. Um,
What about knight takes g6 and knight and rook e4?
yeah, that's what I think we're gonna see.
But
And we see rook
but,
to e8.
but what about rook e4, queen d6? Um,
I think rook f7 is just the only move
yeah, let's
to
see. Yeah,
get
f7
there.
too. Yeah, I was trying to fork that piece, but also it's knight protects the bishop anyways. That's stupid.
I mean, rook to f7, and I think this is just winning. Like I win. This is game.
Hmm.
I'm very confused why we didn't just see takes. Instead, we saw rook to e8, which is just a really inexplicable blunder. Because knight f8, and now we don't have anything. Yeah, weird. We see rook
Okay.
takes, bishop
Yep.
takes, queen here, and yeah, after queen back, another weird play.
We got
This is just mate and two. Check here, and then checkmate.
huh.
Very weird
We
chess.
need some puzzle rush going on here.
Yeah, after here, I thought we were gonna see check, and after bishop blocks, you come queen here, and this is just
Yeah, look
draw.
at. I mean, look at Steve's time too. He's not calculating. Like,
Yeah, because if we go here, we just perpetual, right? But maybe no. Maybe we're winning. I missed this. You go here now white wins.
okay, queen g6.
Yeah, queen g6, but now I come here. So yeah, maybe white was just winning anyways. Um,
We got regular viewer Evan in the chat saying he actually likes this variation of Carol for white because the possibility of making a square of pawns on the king side.
You have a point. The
I'm not.
square of pawns,
Do you know that? Let's throw that counter if you know that. If you know that variation, because I don't.
the pawn cube. There are multiple variations. It's just what ends up happening is I'll set it up conceptually here. Let's say after takes queen here. Let's say just some random moves are made just back and forth. If you ever get this capture, so you capture the knight, if you ever get something like this,
Ah,
this is a very nice pawn
pawn
structure.
cube,
Very,
baby.
very pretty.
Pawn
Exactly, the
cube.
pawn. And
Nothing beats
you
the
have a
pawn cube.
very high potential of getting the pawn cube.
Oh, but he's saying he likes playing against the pawn cube as white, so he's saying he thinks it's weak.
I actually like this pawn cube because it's very hard to attack, in my opinion. But um, you know, that's a style thing. I think that it's fine to play against, but it's also fine to play with. But
And
yeah, okay. So we see
we also
queen
we also
here.
have Thomas wondering about queen e8 instead of queen e7 hitting the bishop on b8.
In this position.
Yeah.
Yeah, playable. Um, I think that it's all winning. Well, okay.
So,
If I go check here, block,
yeah. Queen's covering.
and yeah, this is. Oh, but now this maybe works. And okay, of course this is winning, but when I play here, I actually don't see how you stop mate. Maybe you go here.
Because now, wait, what's the problem with queen e7 comparatively?
Huh?
So,
Oh, queen e7 after this, it's no longer working because the bishop
got
takes.
it. Yeah.
But other yeah.
But
Um,
after queen e8, I got it. Then if bishop can't take because the queen takes f7.
yeah, but instead we see this really inexplicable blunder. We just bishop b4, just throwing the entire advantage, and after takes, this is probably drawn. So black somehow surviving, literally mate in two. So happens. You really just have to slow down. Yeah, we see here pawn to c3, knight out, and yeah, this is now a nothing game. There's nothing to play for. He blunders the pawn. Okay. There's not a lot to say here. Yeah, takes. Opposite color bishops is going to be a draw, because what happens is if I set my pieces on these color squares, you don't have any piece to attack it. So what I can do is I can put my king here and just yo-yo my bishop between these two squares for the rest of the game, and you will never make progress. And we're probably going to see something like that. I'm just going to fast forward. And yeah, you see the bishop is yo-yoing, and there's no progress to be made. And in this position, they agree to a draw. So
Yeah.
white having mate in two on the board, but missing it. And black lives to fight another day, gets away with a half point. Um, not the cleanest game, but
This is
very interesting nonetheless.
this is a bit random, but this whole pawn cube conversation reminds me of some misconceptions I used to have about the bathtub. So the bathtub is kind of similar to the pawn cube, right? You got h6, g7, f7, e6 making the bathtub.
Hmm.
And I used to think, man, this isn't all these GM games. The bathtub's the best, right? Like this is solid, secures my king, blah blah blah. But the more I did tactics and stuff, the more I realized, man, bathtub just gets mated all the time. So yeah, you play the the bathtub ends up appearing in games, but it's not safe. And probably same with pawn cube, etc. Like it all depends on the
Yeah, very,
position.
very
If knight f6 is gone, bathtub is no so good. But hey, if knight f6 is sitting there, it's
hmm
safe. But anyways, totally random point, but just kind of reminds me of like don't get too fixated on I love the pawn cube, I love the bathtub. It all doesn't matter that much. Like piece activity matters way more than
Yep.
pawn structure in general. And like I feel like as players are getting better and better, especially intermediate, they fixate on pawn structure, and it's just yeah, pawn structure is great if everything else if piece activity is already set, but that's not usually the case, and people will you know just obsess over a favorite pawn structure and not focus on keeping all their pieces happy.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, dynamic play is far more important than pawn play. The only time that you're gonna really have pawn play matter is if you see a way to kill all the dynamics, then you probably should go for pawn stuff. But in most positions, there's not really an easy way just to stop all the dynamic play from happening. So you should always focus on pieces. And you know, later on when you're like 2000, 2100, 2200 or higher, then you can really start trying to hone your pawn play. But it's not going to matter until you start getting to like the master level. So, okay, let's take a look at the last game. We
Perfect.
have Thomas versus Srijan. I'm not sure how to pronounce the white player's name. But we see pawn e4, c5, pawn to c3, e6, just a Sicilian. If I'm not mistaken, Thomas is a 1700, and Srijan is, I believe, he's currently rated like 800 or 1000. He's very underrated for his play. But he's playing a very strong player who knows a lot of Sicilian theory, so we'll see how this goes. We see knight to f3. This is actually what I play as white quite often, so I definitely approve. We see pawn to d5, pawn to e5. I actually like the exchange variation with pawn to d4. It's just my favorite, honestly, version. But pawn to e5 is very playable. And we see, okay, knight to c6, very, very solid. Bishop out, and normal development moves. Pawn to d4, queen b6, and knight to a3. I don't actually recall knight a3 being a move here. It's definitely
So,
very interesting, but I don't think this is correct.
so quick question for you, since you're clearly an Alpin player, now and then. Uh, do you like facing e6 or knight f6 better?
Ooh,
Maybe just go back and show them the options quick, just so people can understand.
yeah, okay. So in this position here, I
Or
like
I mean,
facing
I
e6
mean,
because of this line, or
yeah, here's e6
this line.
versus that. Okay.
So actually, in this line, I prefer if they played e6. I usually play the delayed Alapin, so they'll do like well, I usually actually see this or this move, or
So you,
this. So I think
so you
believe
actually
it's
don't,
the
if you played two c3 and you actually don't like two c3 because of knight f6, or what is your, why don't you play two c3? What are you worried about?
I just like lines, you know, because I can always do natural fluid development like this. This is the type of stuff that I like. Or just you can also go d4 right away here, and it turns out this is, I think, a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more sharp. I just like these sharp lines. Um, and no, I've literally faced classical matches against 1800s who took the pawn and lost
Huh.
like on move five,
Yeah,
and I'm just winning the piece. Just I didn't hang the pawn on e4. This is just a fork, and I win. So
brutal. I win a pawn now and then because I'm a Sveshnikov player, so they'll play like e5 and I'll play queen a5 check and win the e5 pawn, but nothing quite a full piece like that in my repertoire.
yes, it was alarming. I think it was like the Minnesota Open or something, and it was like round two, and I got paired up against an 1800, and by move five I was just up a piece, and they played on like 20 more moves, but it was just a little bit too much.
Brutal.
Um, Yeah, and in this position, we're in a French here, and so I don't believe knight to a3 is a French move that I'm familiar with. Although it does make sense because you do want to eventually put your knight on c2 just to support the d4 pawn. So I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't seen this line before. And after bishop b7, this is just a pawn blunder, I believe, because knight takes e5 is tactically working due to the defense of the knight. So very very nice spot. We see takes. And then yeah, now things are collapsing. We really shouldn't be taking here. I think rook to b1 is probably the most principled play that we should go for here, and then go bishop to e3. And
So
the idea of rook to b1 is just we want to hold the pawn, and we don't want to create any concessions, especially since this light squared bishop is gone. B1 is a good square for the rook because it can't be harassed.
back it up just a tiny bit, because Evan made a good point that you already made yourself, Connor, that this is just an advanced French. If we back it up even, yeah,
Mhm.
just right here. If you're evaluating this position, I mean, clearly, if you have strong opening knowledge, you'll recognize if you're a tempo up or down versus other typical positions. But just talking in generals, how do you
Go ahead.
tell? How do you tell if it's a good or bad French? Like which side is having the good version of a French structure like that? Because you can see a lot of games. If black's ahead in tempo, that structure is great for black. Oh, they're getting their queenside play fast enough. Other times, oh wow, white's ahead a tempo or two. They're just going to mate black on the king side. So
Yep.
what actually are you looking for when you get a transposition like this and you're like, is this a good French for white? Is this a good French for black?
So yeah, in this position, this is a really good French for white. You're winning a pawn. This is a free pawn. There's no reason you don't take it. Um, so I was a little surprised to not see it, but I can also see why maybe this is not a move that you like because it looks like you're hanging this pawn here. Um,
Nice. We got Thomas in the chat as well. So
Apparently
welcome, Thomas.
90, 95 he says is a blunder. Is this a blunder? Maybe there's something I'm just not spotting.
Yeah, you can flip the engine on for a second.
Well, no, we should try and figure it out. It's better this way.
All right, fair enough. Oops, sorry. Messing with the view.
So 95, bishop takes, maybe some queen to f3. Queen f3, f6 though.
Yeah, you definitely can't play bishop takes bishop. So
Can we go?
knight takes c5 seems the only.
Okay, wait. Can we take here?
Ah,
Maybe. Now wait, yeah, now white is better, I think. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, that's really bad for black.
well, don't stress it, Thomas. Two experts just missed that. So
Apparently there's a line for bishop c3 where white is winning. I'm gonna turn on the engine. What is? I assume. Okay, it is knight takes. Okay, d takes is the second best move, but okay. The idea is after takes. Okay, actually the same idea as what I was saying. Yeah, exactly the same idea. And okay,
that reminds me of
here.
a
Ah,
game.
c4. What a beautiful play. Wow,
Oh wait, okay, what is it?
wow, nice. I missed this.
So because
The
after
idea of c4 is if you take after knight takes, I'm just coming in, and there's really not a lot you can do.
yeah, you can get
Apparently,
made it.
okay. So apparently, knight b5 is the
Okay,
better play
and
here.
queen takes covers the mate.
Yeah, queen b5, and then you go a4. And whoops.
Deflection.
Yeah. So you're mated. So very, very, very nice.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Look at that king. I mean, yeah, Thomas. Honestly, your king is a little bit drafty here because you got a lot of you got a lot of moves before that king is going to get to safety. You got to move your knight, your bishop, and castle.
But no,
So
okay. I think this is a practical good play though. Because yeah, this is maybe a shock for white unless they're like prepped to the gills. But okay, we see takes, and yeah, now black is definitely for choice here. And after bishop here, knight here, yeah, we're happily developing our pieces. We'll go okay, pawn here, maybe not so needed. Maybe here is slightly better. Just prepare castling. I don't see why we're not doing this to castle. But okay, we play here, which I think is very reasonable. Rook here, yeah. Now we block. And okay, c4, castles, takes here. Um, I think we really should be taking here and then coming rook here, or something like this. If we're going to be playing just to create some weaknesses that we can target long term. Um, because yeah, once we come knight here, now we trade, and this pawn is not a weakness. If this pawn was here, it would be slightly more advantageous for white. But okay, we see this, and now yeah, black is definitely in the driver's seat. Just with the extra pawn, I think they're going to go on to convert this, but we'll see. Okay, so we see knight to b6, knight d4, bishop to f6, just creating some pressure against the knight. Pawn to b3, very nice move. I like this, restricting any knight hops. Unfortunately, we're still going to be able to get our knight here. In fact, I might have played this right away, just because I like the square. But okay, rook here. I'm not fully understanding why we play rook here. We're staring at a pawn. We're unless we're planning on pushing the pawn, which I
Yeah.
think is a little premature.
I mean,
I
that's
don't.
that's clearly his idea. Come on.
Yeah, here, knight here. Yeah, and the reason why is this knight is so well anchored with this pawn. But okay, so we play our rook here, knight back, knight
I
in.
mean, you do suppress bishop g3 a bit. I mean, making progress somewhat, but
Okay, knight here takes.
I like keeping it on e6 too.
In this position, I think we should just trade because this is going to make the pawns weaker. But okay, we play here, takes, bishop here, knight takes. And yeah, I mean, this is hope chess. We really can't be playing it. But this is another free pawn, yeah. And after rook to c1, g6, knight in, just yeah, okay. And this is game. Rook takes a3 probably. Yep, king to f1, and it looks like
Ah, nice.
black win.
Taking advantage of the weak back rank. Nice
Yeah,
job.
I think black wins here, possibly by resignation. I mean, yeah, this makes sense. If you go bishop d4, there's really nothing to play. The knight is now a little bit stuck. It's very bad. So yeah, very nice game. Very well played. Yeah, in the opening it went very bad very quickly, very wrong very quickly. With this, yeah, this queen here is fine. Knight to a3. Actually, do like this move. But yeah, this bishop to d7 is maybe not what you want to be playing here. I might consider moves like this, or maybe even just relieving the tension here might be called for. Um, takes, then you go bishop here with this threat, because now you're not blundering this pawn. And actually,
Well,
I quite like this for black, all things considered. So, yeah. But once you got past the opening, it was a very smooth game with a very nice transition for the black pieces.
so nice win by Thomas. He's in the chat and he says he's unrated. So Thomas, maybe you want to drop your online rating in the chat so we can all be understanding what we're in for when we face you over the board. Because yeah, clearly showing some strong play here.
Hmm. Yeah, clearly you're not a beginner. Just the way you played this was very principled and very nice. Other than the small wrinkle in the opening where White had this trick with this C4 move. And honestly, if you see C4, you are facing an engine. They prepped it with an engine. There's not a lot you can do. Nate says heading out. Awesome stream. Thank you for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping in,
Hopefully
Nathan.
you'll be able to stop by again some other time. I'm glad you were able to listen, and hopefully you learned a little bit about some openings. Yeah, he says he's 2000 on lead chess in the classical time control. That makes good sense. You're playing this very solid, very principled. Yeah, and if like I said, if you see this with this pawn to c4, this is engine prep. You're facing an engine. There's nothing you can do. Your opponent has just outprepared you. So, um, yeah, no, very well played. I like what Black did. There were a few places. Not this line. Okay, back here, takes here. Queen back. All this is okay.
All right, fair warning, Thomas. You got to watch out for Connor here. He likes to beat up the club, so
Yeah, okay. Yeah, a6. Yeah, in this position, I understand that this move is scam. Okay, maybe okay, I understand a6. I'm not gonna say that's a bad play. Yeah, here this is fine. Yeah, in this position, maybe taking is a little bit more principled. That way you're not going to be left with this pawn weakness. Because after takes, I mean, you can see takes, but now you castle and there's no more weakness. Uh, maybe this is a little weird, but yeah, I'm not so sure. Um, but okay, castles like I can't be so critical. Takes. Yeah, and after takes. Maybe this is actually the best you have. It's very tricky to say. Um, yeah. Okay, yeah. Here, the queen to c6 is maybe the strange play. Uh, maybe a little bit more solid would be going here. That way you don't ever have a weakness that can be attacked. But
I feel it.
this is really, I mean,
Well, I be. Do you,
nitpicky.
so why do you have to play
Maybe
b6?
not here actually.
But
Not here is maybe even more principled.
I want to get developed. I don't want to play a pawn move when I have knight e7 and bishop f8.
Yeah, and you know, you sack a pawn, but you're developing quickly, and I think this is also very reasonable. But you know, especially at the lower levels, being
Mm-hmm.
materialistic is definitely the way to go,
Mm-hmm.
because you know it's an extra pawn. It's very hard to argue against that. So
Uh,
I think maybe b6.
I feel like pawn, pawns aren't people though. Materialistic with pawns is totally different than being materialistic. Like, yeah, if they give an exchange, if they give any type of peace concession materially, but pawn's a pawn, especially if you're getting way behind in development in the opening. Like,
Yeah,
I want to complete my opening every single game.
yeah.
Like,
So
I would hate getting mated
this
with
position, I
bishop
think
on
you have
f8.
you almost have to take if you're trying to play for a win, because this is just a bad pawn structure compared to what they had before, because this pawn no longer has any way to support itself. Very nitpicky, but since you're a 2000 online, I think this is something that is reasonable, and you'll probably pick up and understand fairly easily. And then you just want to trade because this pawn endgame is going to be for choice for you, because your pawns are in the correct color compared to the bishops, and these are going to be long-term weaknesses. So, um, yeah, I other than that, your entire game was, I think, very clean. This was a very well played match. So very impressive showing here. And yeah, these tactics at the end, very nice. Yeah, seeing this rook takes a3, very nice.
Nice, and also goes to show White really needed to make some space for their king probably at some point earlier in the game. I'm not sure if they ever had a chance, but back rank always comes to bite you. Like, and you should really recognize weak back ranks from your opponent and for yourself because so often it will lead to tactics.
Yep. All right. Looks like Miles's game that we left off here finished, and somehow Miles won this as the black pieces. Okay, we do CG4, which I like. King F7, Rook
Be right
E2,
back.
H5, H3, H takes, F5. What? Bishop takes. Okay. Very weird. Okay. Yeah, bishop takes. Yeah, and after push, it's just yeah, now Rook H8, and what do you play? Okay, yeah, he tricked his opponent Rook G2, Rook H3, and you're just lost. Yeah, nothing to play. And after I'll go. So here takes, here takes. Yeah, Rook E8, King here, Rook H3, Rook E1. Yeah, but now after Rook check and here, Rook H2, there's no way to stop yourself from being mated. So um yeah, very tricky. Back in this position, I think you just have to take with the pawn. I don't see why pawn takes is bad. Yeah, and in fact, after pawn takes, I really do like white. Because moves like this don't work because we just go king here. Um, the point is this rook just can't play. We need to keep the bishop here so the rook can't play. And so Miles being Miles is going to try and sack, but unfortunately it doesn't work because we can take with our rook. So yeah, and there's really no threat with here because after rook to g2, rook here, we can just play here. So I don't understand why we didn't just take the pawn. And I'm gonna check with the engine. G takes top move, bishop takes is tied for the top move, but I think pawn takes has to be played. Because yeah, the second you go bishop takes, yeah, this does get scary. Maybe what you need to do here is something like rook to d1. Just hit the bishop. And then after like the bishop retreats, now we take. Because yeah, the way we played it here with takes, rook to h8. Now we don't have any rook here. Whereas if we played before taking, if we played rook d1, now after backup and takes and rook here, now we just go rook d3. So I think this is how we have to play it. I don't know. Yeah, this is just inexplicable. I mean, this is clearly bad. Yeah, okay. And after here, king here. Yeah, and this is clearly bad. I don't know how Miles managed to win this, but very impressive. That
Well, maybe just a
this
bit of nerves from Daniel. Honestly, pretty decent game by him overall, considering he was lower seed, and he's been actually doing pretty well in the premier section because he was playing open for a while and doing extremely well in open, but really being extremely competitive in all of his premier games here. Was on his way to upsetting Miles until
yeah, he blunders this mate. I'm not sure. So yeah, back in this position, I think that more more safe is taking this way. Engine thinks both are equal. Bishop takes is fine. But
well,
yeah, here you have to be seeing like right here. This is, I think, the only
so
only real
pawn takes is safer, and this is only variation you're saying.
yeah, and after takes, it's just if you even wanted, you could take here, but good enough. Yeah, I don't see why this is not just winning because
Well,
we're gonna be winning this pawn here.
and so I mean he pretty much got mated, right? And this makes sense actually a little bit. If you think about if you're down a pawn in an opposite color bishop rook ending, play for mate. Opposite color
Yeah,
bishops lead to attacking chances. So you're down material, play for attacking chances, and
yeah,
maybe it'll happen. So, and that's also something to realize when you're up material and you've got opposite color bishops. Like, those bishops control a lot of squares that the other bishop can't control, and that leads to a lot of threats against your king. So, be careful.
yeah. And then let's go to the last game with Norm. Yeah, in this position, we saw rook to b6. Yeah, and just like we saw, sacking the pieces, and it's not quite enough. We protect bishop here. Um, yeah, it's just I think this is too little, too late. But Norm is at least putting up some resistance in this position. Yeah, maybe you can't trade bishops. I might have tried trading, but yeah, there's really nothing to do. And then maybe try pushing, but it's not working. This is maybe I think the best attempt, but yeah, it's all lost. So yeah, okay, Norm doesn't trade. He comes here, takes, and then I assume he resigned because he saw a rook here. Because in this position it says white won. And so I'm thinking that Norm realized that rook to b7 is a threat and just resigned.
Yep, I'm a never resign guy myself. I see all these, famous master game tactics where they resign like 3 moves before mate, and I'm like, I would have let him mate me.
Yeah. I almost always played a mate. There was, I think, one time where I didn't play a mate, where I had a headache the entire night. I was feeling bad, and I literally blundered a queen in one move. I didn't even see my opponent could take my queen, and I was like, we're done tonight." But other than
Well,
that, I think I've played to mate every time, and in some cases, I was like, "I'm dead lost. How did I do this? Oh, he blundered a rook. I win." Right? And that can happen. So I always
well,
play.
I'll sometimes resign down a piece or down a queen, but I'm talking, you know, they literally have a mating sequence on the board, like, and then they're like, okay, I just resign. I see it. We both see it. It's like, okay, just play it out. You never know. They could be seeing something else. And if they didn't, let them play their brilliant mate. But 2% of the time, they're going to, you know, play a play a move in the sequence that actually doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe they'll miss something. All right,
But
I believe that's all the
yes,
games. We can do a quick recap of all of them
sure.
since we finished up.
Yeah, one other note here. Let me actually, before we do the recap, let me plug our sponsor.
Mhm.
So we had a sponsor on the channel, chessgoals.com. Local national master Matt Jensen owns the company. It's opening courses meant for club players, so very straightforward club repertoires that you're going to be able to see the lines in your own games. He's got all sorts of courses. Got a Discord where he supports the members who buy his courses and answers questions that they ask in there. So I own one of the courses myself, the Catalan course, and it seems like a great product. So check out chessgoals.com if you're looking for opening courses for club players. And if you do decide to make any purchases, please use coupon code CASTLE. And I want to make one other announcement. Next week, since we got Thanksgiving, the club tournament is actually on Wednesday instead of Thursday. A bit to be determined if we're going to have a stream or not. But if we do, it'll be on Wednesday, not Thursday. So just wanted to announce that. And go ahead, Connor, with the recap.
Yeah. All right. So we'll recap Miles's game, the one we were looking at a little bit earlier. White playing four knights and dressing with d4, very standard opening. Um, Nothing new, nothing exciting. Miles playing what he always likes doing, aggressive towards the center. Miles is a very attacking player, so this is very normal. Castles, castles, and just a very normal game. And yeah, white all of a sudden lets themselves get pushed around with all these bishop moves. And then for some reason we see bishop d6 here. I still think h6 is a little bit more called for, but it ends up working out for Miles, so maybe not so much to complain about. But yeah, we see captures, and yeah, black's pawn structure is a little bit ruined. And after knight to b5, Miles makes the practical decision just to give up this c7 pawn just for some attacking chances. And we see this very tricky endgame. I mean, if I'm playing white, I'm thinking, I'm going to win this every time. But there is still play, and Miles shows us there's still play in this position and makes it very murky. I think maybe c4 here is a little bit called for that, or f4 here is called for just to stop any center shenanigans instead of going rook to e1. But after rook d1, we see pawn t5, and now it's getting a little tricky. And Miles shows his aggressive technique, puts a rook here, and now these pawns are frozen, and it's very hard to move as the white pieces. No, I think white finds a fantastic idea. I might have taken this way just because I like the outside pass pawn, but it is scary because you allow this. And actually, now that I look at this, maybe this is bad. But okay, we takes, push. And then for some reason, we see takes here, which I think is inexplicable. I think there's no reason not to play rook to d1 hitting this, because now after takes here, no real danger, and you're hitting the bishop. And if we back up, now if we see the line that we saw in the game, we'll go rook to d3. But okay, this is of course in retrospect. Maybe even I would have missed this, although maybe not. But yeah, instead we see takes, and after rook to h8, now black is completely winning. After this king to g2 move, we see rook to h3, and we're just threatening checkmate. Rook e1, rook check, king f1, and after rook to h2, there is no stopping rook to g1 checkmate. Next move, the best you can do is, stall it, something like this. Hope that they take, but unfortunately, black will just go rook g1 checkmate. So after we saw rook to h2, white resigns and black wins. So very nice one by Miles. The next game is between Nathan Hoover and Robert Donahue. We see d4 and Robert playing a sacrifice.
Budapest.
This Budapest, yep, the Budapest Gambit. And yeah, Nate playing a very nice match, and Nate just immediately getting a winning position. Takes. Robert comes in, queen d2, and yeah, I think Nate should go on to win this most of the time. But Robert playing very tricky. It goes knight h6. I think maybe snapping the knight here is maybe the best, practically speaking. But okay, we see e4, and Robert comes up with this very creative sacrifice where he gives up this rook for the bishop and really starts hunting down this white king and tears open the position. And yeah, all of a sudden, white finds themselves in a bit of trouble and is forced to, in a few moves, give back the exchange. And now white is down pawn. But of course, they win this pawn back. And after a few moves in this position, I believe they agree to a draw. So a very, very wild match, but a very peaceful result at the end. So well played by both players. The next match we'll look at is Eddie versus Ronan. Eddie playing the black pieces, Ronan white. We see pawn to d4 and a very standard King's Indian defense. And Ronan plays King's Indian himself quite often, so both sides are quite familiar with the ideas. But Eddie just shows the power of the King's Indian in this game. He maneuvers his knight to a very powerful square, stopping b4 from kicking the knight out. So very, very happy here with his knight. And he just starts rolling his pawns like he's supposed to in the King's Indian. And normally what white does is they'll have counter chances on the queen side, but Eddie has locked up the pawns. There are no counter chances for white. And so Eddie just takes control of this game. Now, h4, I think, is a very nice practical move. The engine may hate it, but it's very hard to find what to do. Our plan is just to take and, bishop here and trade. And that's exactly what ends up happening. He takes, king h2, rook h1, and then we're gonna trade just like we said. And yeah, nothing you can really do. And Ronan plays this expertly all the way to basically a drawn position. And in this position, what you have to do is just sit and wait. There's nothing to play for, and so you just should do nothing. But Ronan gets a little bit ambitious and starts trying to play for a win, and ends up getting in some trouble with this move, king to d3, which just allows this pawn to h3 push. And all of a sudden, I think white is going to win this. And after takes, white may be up a pawn, but the problem is this pawn right here is vital, and it's stopping this pawn. There's no way to hold it. So Ronan starts running his pawn, but ultimately Eddie shows his amazing technique. And after knight to f6, he's stopping the pawn from pushing. So the idea is after push, takes, what's going to happen is, even though we're going to come over here and, eat some pawns, after pawn to e2, we have to sacrifice, takes, and black queens the pawn, and this is just too much. There's nothing we can do, and this will be easily winning once we mop up the last pawn and maybe even make a second queen. So back in this position, white throws in the towel, and Eddie gets a fantastic win. The next game we're going to see is Norm versus Ralph. So we see Ralph playing pawn to d4, and just a very normal opening. Queen to b3, a little bit strange. You don't see this so often, but it is playable. And after queen to b6, we see this very strange move, queen back to d1. And this just shows that maybe Ralph is not so comfortable in this position, doesn't know the ideas, but Ralph ends up playing it fine. He pushes pawn to c5, brings his knight out, and starts trying to grab space. And Norm fights back in the center, and we get to this very drawish game, and Ralph ends up just showing that he has some pretty good technique here. Trade, And Ralph starts rolling these pawns, grabbing space. In this position, maybe it's oops, maybe it's called for it to take or something, but it's very hard already because White has so much space and starts really pressuring. And Norm plays this move, Bishop C2, which I think is quite a big mistake. Excuse me. Because it just gives White a free hand to just attack with no consequence. And once we get a pawn down to c7, there's no real great way to defend. And we see White masterfully converting this game, and eventually, back in this position, winning after bishop takes c7. I think in this position, either Norm ran out of time. It looks like he has zeros, but he's also losing to this rook to b7 play. And there are 1, 2, 3 attackers and only 1, 2 defenders, and there's no way to add another defender. So White is just going to be winning a piece. So very nice win by Ralph here. We then see the game Thomas versus Srihan, um, where we see this pretty boring opening of the Caro-Kann, and White starts to play a very sharp match. And yeah, we see this pawn to a5 move. I don't really like this play because this just invites pressure against the pawn. If we're going to play here, I think pawn here is more called for, but okay, we play here. And White starts building up pressure, and all of a sudden we see rook to b8, which is just a free pawn. And now, even though we're trying to create some counter chances, all of the play is going to be good for White. Again, in this position we go check, here takes, and in this position, yeah, queen to e7. Fantastic play, and I think this is just game. In this position, White misses, bishop takes pawn check, king over, and queen takes knight. And this is just checkmate. And unfortunately, they play this really terrible blunder with bishop b4, and after takes. Now this game is unfortunately a draw. And White, even though they're not playing absolute best moves, is able to draw because of the opposite color bishop, and we just shuffle our bishops around and eventually draw. And the very last match, Scott versus Steve. Okay. Sorry. That was Scott versus Steve. They both, it looks like, saved the same game on top of each other. Interesting. So something went wrong with the board saving, and they've put two of the same games on top of each other.
Ah.
Um,
Well, we did get good coverage.
oh,
So we are just in
yep.
the recap, so we got good coverage during the main broadcast, and they can jump to that point there. So thank you.
Maybe one sec. Let me see if I is this it? It looks like there are two games. Okay, here it is.
Got it.
Yeah, okay, here we go. This is the game that I remembered. Yeah, it just for some reason they saved the other game on top of the other, and this is now considered a variation, which is what actually happened in the game. So something funny happened somewhere in the system. But yeah, in this position, as Thomas pointed out, it turns out that knight takes is actually just winning, because after takes, you yeah, I mean, you have this incredible resource after pawn takes. Yeah, if you take here, I believe it's just pawn here, or no, bishop here has to be good. But if you play the top engine move, queen to a6, this incredible move, pawn to c4, just ends up winning the game on the spot. Because the idea is after takes. If you go pawn to a5, sorry, a4, the queen has to defend the square. If they don't, this is checkmate. So it turns out you just win the queen. So because of this line, this is a blunder. But of course, we didn't see this. We're not supercomputers. So we end up just playing black wins a pawn and just masterfully converts this. A very, very clean finish. Trades everything. In this position, maybe take the rook. But okay, instead we trade. Knight takes. and spot this very nice tactic of rook takes a3, and after king to f1 we see resignation, and actually maybe resignation because of this, which I missed in my first analysis because we're pinned. But no, this is a very clean win. It's just our pawns are too much, 3 extra pawns. So yeah, a very nice win. I believe that is all the games, and then the Scott versus Steve game is the one that I reviewed earlier, that ended with this draw.
Perfect.
Uh, Perfect. Yeah, a very nice match by everyone. And yeah, next week, remember, the matches will be on Wednesday, not Thursday, because we do not want to be playing on Thanksgiving. So I believe that's it. Any closing words?
Yeah, thank you so much for the commentary, Connor, and really appreciate your time. Uh, Also, any players who played in the tournament who we commented on tonight, if you guys watch the replay, please leave a comment. You guys are our most desired audience, but also not taking away anything from our live audience of spectators. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I saw we just had 9 viewers, so thank you so much for checking out the games. And we'll potentially see you next week or definitely next month.
Yep.
So thank you so
All
much.
right.
Bye.
Have a good night. Thank you for commentating with me.